Imagine a world where oxygen doesn't matter. A world where life thrives not with breath, but without it. Sounds like sci-fi, right? But here's the plot twist: such creatures already exist. While we humans gasp for air after just a few minutes without oxygen, there are organisms out there that don't even need it at all. Some were discovered in ocean trenches so deep light has never touched them. Others lurk inside our own bodies. And one of them? It might actually live forever. These are the top 5 real-life creatures that don't care if there's air. So sit tight, because what you're about to hear will flip your understanding of life upside down. Let's start with a microscopic monster that broke every biology textbook. In 2010, a team of scientists led by Roberto D'Annavaro were exploring one of the most extreme places on Earth, the L'Atalante Basin at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. It's completely sealed off from the rest of the ocean. A salty, toxic soup with no oxygen, no sunlight, and no hope for life. Or so they thought. They dredged up sediment from 3,000 meters below and looked under a microscope. That's when they saw it, an organism no one had ever seen before. It didn't just survive without oxygen, it had no mitochondria at all. You know, the powerhouse of the cell? Gone. Instead, it had structures called hydrogenosomes, which allow it to produce energy without oxygen. They named this alien-like creature Spinoloricus cinziae. And here's the kicker: it's a multicellular animal, not just a microbe. This was the first time scientists ever found an animal that lives its entire life without oxygen. It was like discovering a fish that doesn't need water. Spinoloricus cinziae isn't just holding its breath. It literally evolved in an environment where oxygen was never an option. It's not a backup system. This is its normal. Scientists believe it may have descended from ancient lineages that existed before oxygen was even a major part of Earth's atmosphere. That means we're not talking about a creature that adapted to a harsh place. This is a creature from a completely different timeline. One where air was poison. Now, let's move from the bottom of the sea to something that might be living inside you right now. Meet Bacteroides fragilis, one of the many bacteria that live in your gut. This little guy is part of a class of organisms called obligate anaerobes, which means oxygen doesn't just do nothing for them, it actually kills them. You know how doctors tell you to keep wounds clean so they don't get infected? That's because anaerobic bacteria thrive in oxygen-deprived environments like deep cuts, intestines, or even gangrenous tissue. And guess what? They're essential for your survival. Bacteroides fragilis helps you digest complex molecules, makes vitamins, and keeps harmful bacteria in check. But the second it's exposed to air, it starts dying. These bacteria have evolved completely different biochemistry. No mitochondria, no oxygen using enzymes. They use fermentation to generate energy, creating gases and acids instead of carbon dioxide and water. That's why farts smell. They're basically the exhaust fumes of bacteria that don't breathe. And get this, some of these bacteria can actually switch modes. They lie dormant when exposed to air, waiting for a safe, oxygen-free place to return to life. That's not just survival, that's strategy. They don't need oxygen. They need darkness, stillness, and your dinner leftovers. And in that environment, they flourish beyond belief. You're probably thinking this is all just weird biology, right? Tiny creatures, strange rules. So let's shake things up with something bigger. Something tougher. Something terrifying. It's time to talk about the Henneguya salminicola. This creature redefined the idea of what animals need to live. Discovered in the muscle tissue of salmon, Henneguya is a microscopic parasite that looks like a tiny white jellyfish under the microscope. And in 2020, researchers made a jaw-dropping discovery. When they sequenced its genome, they found something missing, completely missing. No mitochondrial DNA. None. That means this animal doesn't use oxygen at all. It's not just tolerant of oxygen-free environments, it literally can't process oxygen. It lives entirely through anaerobic metabolism. Essentially, it steals nutrients from its salmon host and lives off that. It doesn't swim, it doesn't move, it doesn't breathe. It just exists. Now here's the wild part. This animal is a relative of jellyfish, which usually float around and use oxygen like everyone else. But somewhere in its evolutionary path, Henneguya salminicola gave up breathing altogether. And it's doing just fine. It has no muscles, no nerves, and no respiration. It's more ghost than fish. But it's alive. Why does this matter? Because until this discovery, biologists thought all multicellular life required oxygen at some stage. Henneguya flipped that rule on its head. This is an animal that doesn't breathe, doesn't eat in the normal sense, and yet lives, replicates, and thrives inside other living beings. Let's go deeper, colder, stranger. There's an organism that doesn't just survive without oxygen, it might survive forever. Say hello to the tardigrade. Also known as the water bear or moss piglet, it's one of the toughest creatures on Earth. Tardigrades can survive in boiling heat, freezing cold, the vacuum of space, and yes, even complete oxygen deprivation. How? Cryptobiosis. When conditions get rough, a tardigrade can dry itself out, shut down all its metabolic processes, and enter a state that's basically suspended animation. No breathing, no eating, no moving. It curls into a little ball called a tun, encases itself in a glass-like protein shield, and just waits. For years. Decades, even. Then, when conditions improve, it rehydrates and comes back to life. Fully functional. As if nothing happened. In 2007, scientists shot tardigrades into space. Exposed them to cosmic radiation and the vacuum of the universe. They came back alive. Not most of them. Not some of them. Many of them. Alive. Breathing again. Scientists were stunned. Inside their DNA are special proteins and molecules that protect their cells from damage caused by lack of oxygen. They don't just tolerate anaerobic conditions. They endure them like time travelers. Cryogenically frozen superheroes that refuse to die. Tardigrades show us what life could look like on other planets. If there's no oxygen on Mars? No problem. Tardigrade might be chilling up there already. Okay, not really, but they could survive the journey. Now let's wrap this up with something that doesn't just survive where no oxygen exists, it thrives. In boiling acid. At the bottom of the sea. Inside underwater volcanoes. The microbe's name is Methanopyrus kandleri. It belongs to a class of lifeforms known as archaea, which are neither bacteria nor eukaryotes like us. Archaea are so ancient, they probably existed before oxygen did. And Methanopyrus might be the toughest of them all. Discovered in hydrothermal vents near deep sea ridges, this microbe lives in water that's 122 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than the boiling point of water. Yet it thrives. Not just survives, thrives. It feeds off hydrogen and carbon dioxide, producing methane as waste. That's right, methane. Not oxygen. It uses a completely different energy cycle. It lives in places where pressure would crush a human like a soda can and oxygen doesn't exist. This thing is so ancient and so extreme, scientists believe it could resemble the earliest forms of life on Earth. Or life that could exist on Europa, one of Jupiter's icy moons, where under the frozen surface lies an ocean of possibilities. Think about that. The very first life on Earth might not have needed oxygen. Might not have cared about sunlight. Might have been more like this microbe than like us. And if that's true, then maybe we're not the rule. Maybe we're the exception. So what have we learned? We started this journey with the idea that oxygen is life. That breathing equals survival. But in the shadows, in the depths, and even inside our own bodies, there are creatures rewriting the rules. From jellyfish-like parasites that don't breathe, to microscopic animals that can hibernate through space, to bacteria that help us digest our food while actively avoiding oxygen, life is stranger, and stronger, than we imagined. These organisms aren't just weird facts. They're clues. Clues that life can take forms we've never dreamed of. That the universe might be teeming with beings that don't need air, or light, or warmth. Beings that could be living in places we thought were dead. So next time someone tells you that oxygen is essential, tell them this story. About a parasite that doesn't breathe. A microbe that loves fire. a bear that can survive the void, and a creature from the bottom of the sea that never even heard of lungs. Because life always finds a way, even when there's no air to breathe. And that, my friends, is why Earth is weirder, wilder, and far more wonderful than we ever imagined. Catch you in the next video, where we'll explore more mind-blowing science you never saw coming. Don't forget to hit that like button if your brain just exploded a little, and hey, maybe hold your breath and see how long you last without oxygen. Just kidding. Don't do that. Stay weird, stay curious, and stay breathing. For now.